22nd century AD. We sat there and looked at the rockets from Mars, and it just boggled the mind. And the technology caught up to them.
さあ、昨日はここ串本町や那智勝浦町ではですね、一時強い雨も降っておりましたが、今日は昨日と打って変わって大変青空が広がっておりまして、気持ちの良いお天気となっております。ただ、昨日の雨の影響も少しあるんでしょうか。風は強くはないんですが、しっかりと吹いているような状況でございまして、目の前の海もですね、白波が立っている状況ではございます。さあ、ライブ配信をご視聴の皆様はじめ、国内外多くの皆様が心待ちにしておりましたカイロスロケット3号機の打ち上げがいよいよこの後午前11時を予定しております。ここ串本町の田原海水浴場の会場からお届けしておりますこのライブ配信、打ち上げの記念すべき瞬間を迎えるにあたり、本日も素敵なゲストにお越しいただいております。和歌山県立串本小座高等学校藤島徹先生です。藤島先生、よろしくお願いいたします。
And welcome everybody to the stream. I'm not sure how many of the viewers can actually understand what's being said. I did not turn on subtitles. I don't have subtitles. But we are here live looking at the stream for the, I believe it is pronounced, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it is pronounced the Kairos rocket, which is being launched by the commercial company in Japan, Space One. This will be the third flight of this rocket. And we're about, I want to say 30 minutes out from the launch. I think the T0 is 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're in the Eastern Time Zone, aka the Superior Time Zone, 9 p.m. is the time to look for. If you're in any other time, I can't tell you what time it's supposed to launch in any other time zone. Except for maybe like Central and Pacific time. I can do the math there. But if you're over in Europe, I'm not sure how many hours ahead you are from Eastern. So you guys are going to have to figure that out on your own. But they're currently giving speeches. I have no idea who anyone is that's speaking. There's been no text or anything that comes up. Any texts that are on screen, I can't read them. So we're off to a great start today. But I'm excited to see this launch here. It's like I was saying before, this is the third flight of this specific rocket. It's kind of considered a hybrid rocket, but it's not. The propellant itself is not like a hybrid rocket motor like you see on like Virgin Galactic's spaceship and stuff. Basically, by hybrid, it means that it's partially solid fuel on certain stages and it's liquid fuel on other stages of the rocket. The primary fuel for the rocket is solid rocket fuel for the first two stages. Or no, sorry, first three stages are all solid rocket motors. Now obviously, when you're burning a solid rocket fuel, you have to be very precise with that. You have to have just the right amount of propellant in order to make sure your engines stop burning at the right time, because once you light a solid rocket motor, it does not stop until there's no fuel left. There's no cutoff for the rocket. And the only cutoff is the termination system. If there's a failure in flight, that's the only way to stop that motor, is by essentially blowing it up in flight. But first three stages are all solid fuel, and then there is a kick stage, which is liquid fuel, that will then fire up and get it into its precise, get whatever payload it's carrying into its precise orbit. So those first three stages have to perform like perfectly nominally. They have to then burn out and shut down at the right time in order to get that kick stage to the right spot, where the kick stage can then go on and finish the job. I'm not 100% sure what fuel it's using for the kick stage. I'm assuming it's probably something hypergolic, or seems to be what a lot of companies for like they throw the hypergolics on there, because the kind of the point of this rocket is like speed to the pad, getting the customer's payload into orbit as quickly as possible. Their kind of big selling point for this is getting the customer's payload into orbit in less than a year, which I know that sounds like a crazy, insane speeds, right? But there are there's launch providers, they launch so infrequently that they get a very long backlog of customers that are trying to get their payloads into orbit, which, isn't a bad thing for the company itself, but for customers trying to get their research, trying to get their science payloads into orbit and stuff to get the data and stuff they need, that can be kind of a pain in the butt. And so the big selling point for Space One's KAIROS rocket is the fact that they can get it to the launch pad. They market it as getting it to the launch pad faster than any of their competitors in Japan, or I guess around the world, which may not entirely be true given how frequently we see Falcon 9 launch, how frequently we're starting to see Rocket Lab's Electron launch, which Electron I think is going to be a lot closer of a competitor to the KAIROS rocket than the Falcon 9 is. Falcon 9 is more of a medium to heavy lift rocket, while Electron is specifically marketed towards those small sat customers, which is who the KAIROS rocket is marketed towards, is the small sat customers. I've got some information pulled up here on one of my screens. I'm just trying to read through it to make sure I'm not missing anything. And obviously the choice in fuel being solid propellant. Solid propellant is very easy to store. You can kind of just keep it at room temperature and it's not going to do anything bad. Whereas liquid propellants, they have to be kept at sub-freezing temperatures the entire time, or else they're going to boil off from the rocket, and you essentially lose that fuel to the air. It's just going to boil off into the air and you're going to lose that propellant inside the rocket. And so essentially kind of what they're going for is build a bunch of rockets, keep them in storage until the customer is ready to launch, and then they just roll it out to the pad right then and there. So that's all kind of, all these design decisions that they've made for the KAIROS rocket are all kind of going towards that philosophy of having that extremely short lead time and being able to get the customer's payload into orbit as quickly as possible. And I'm just going off of the internet for the information that I'm getting, so if any of you that are currently watching this stream, if you guys have different information that maybe is the correct info and I'm reading the incorrect info, please do let me know in the comments, because I would love to make sure that I'm giving the correct information to the viewers. This specific rocket today is carrying 5 customer payloads. I'm not sure who for. I cannot find any listed companies. I'm sure that they're listed somewhere. But 5 different customer payloads, all of which are, let's see here. I'm going to pull up my, where's my info at again? Here we go. Yeah, it doesn't actually say what the payloads are for. I'm sure if I did an internet search here and took a second, I could figure out some info on these satellites. But this is the 3rd flight of this rocket. As I was saying, trying to see here. This is a relatively new vehicle. They launched for the first time back in 2024. And they have not launched since 2024 due to both of their first 2 flights both ended in failures. So they've taken a long hiatus between launches to try and get this rocket figured out and get the systems working the way they're supposed to, so that way they do not have another incident on their 3rd flight. Because especially for private companies such as Space One, I'm not sure how much help they're getting from the Japanese government, but there's a lot for the American industry, at least. Flying privately, launching your rockets privately can be a very difficult task, as seen with companies such as Virgin Orbit, which went out of business because their success rate was very low and they had a lot of failures. I just don't think that their operation that they're going for was as effective as they were hoping. Obviously, air launch sounds like it has a lot of benefits to it. And so, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Virgin Orbit. Virgin Orbit, though, strapped a rocket to the wing of a Boeing 747, and they dropped the rocket from the plane and lit the rocket's engines in midair to get their payload in orbit. But they were met with a lot of issues, a lot of failures in flight. They did have a couple successful missions, but their success rate just was not high enough to allow them to be successful. And then there's even companies that fail to get a rocket off the ground in general before they kind of go under and go bankrupt. So a lot of that goes into just the funding side of stuff. And so with Space One, I'm not sure how much help they're getting, or if they're just strictly investor driven. They only have private investors that are driving their business. But you obviously don't want to have a long streak of failures, because you're going to lose your investors, because they're going to lose confidence in the project, and your company's going to go under. You're not going to be able to survive. So I'm sure this 2-year hiatus that we have seen from, well, almost 2 years, maybe closer to about maybe a year and a half or so, just under a year and a half, because their flight 2 was in December of 2024, so you can't really count it as 2 years, given how late in 2024 it was. But hopefully today we see that their issues have been resolved. We do have a view of the rocket. I'm going to go ahead and go full screen here. I've been trying to plug our other social medias. Let's go full screen though and show the rocket in all of its glory. You can see it on the pad here. We are about T-minus 23 minutes to launch. Like I said, that window opens up here at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for any other time zone other than Central and Pacific, I could not tell you what time this thing launches, because that's a lot of math to do. And I'm not going to do math tonight. I just don't feel like it, guys. So I see we got quite a few of you watching tonight, watching this stream. Definitely an exciting one to be here for, to see the success, or hopefully not a failure, but to see whatever the outcome of this rocket is going to be tonight. I hope for the best for them. I really hope Space One has a success on their 3rd attempt here, because they, as I was saying before, their first 2 flights ended in failures, and they have not had a successful trip to orbit yet. So hopefully we see them achieve orbit for the first time today. It is actually interesting. I was talking about like how they get their funding and stuff. I wasn't sure how they get their funding, but if you pay attention closely to the rocket, looking at the close-up here, you can see they actually have a lot of brands listed on the booster and on the fairing of the rocket. I can see the Canon logo for like the Canon camera company is plastered onto the fairing of this rocket. So Canon is a sponsor of the rocket, and then you've got a bunch of other sponsors. It seems there's a bunch of other companies' logos listed on the gantry right behind the rocket, kind of like the little shelter that they kept the rocket inside of. And then down the booster, you've got more sponsor logos on the rocket. So that's definitely a neat way of funding your rocket project, is getting sponsors and stuff and featuring them, which I think the only other people we've seen do this is Russia. Russia launched the what was that rocket called? I forget the name of the rocket now. It's not coming to my head fast enough. Proton. I think it's the Proton is what they call their rocket. Yes, it was the Proton rocket. I can't remember which model, but there was a launch of the Proton where they plastered the Pizza Hut logo on. Well, I shouldn't say plastered. That makes it seem like it was everywhere, but they had the Pizza Hut logo on the fairing of the rocket, and I thought it was probably the funniest thing that anyone's ever done with a rocket launch to date to fund the mission. Unfortunately, no Pizza Hut logos are on this rocket today, but a lot of other really cool companies, such as Canon. I personally am a Canon photographer. I love to use Canon products. Some people may call me a Canon fanboy. So it's definitely cool to see their logo on the fairing of this rocket. I'm not sure if it's one of their satellites on board, which is why you see the Canon logo. I don't know if Canon is putting some kind of imagery satellite into orbit. Once again, I could find all this information out here fairly quickly. I would have to take a second to do a Google search. And it is unfortunate because they don't have any subtitles with the rocket here. Or with the stream that they have for the webcast for the rocket that they're showing here. Because there are people giving speeches, and I would love to be able to let you listen to them, which, I mean, you already kind of are listening to them. If I'm not talking, if I shut up and let you listen, you could listen to them, but I'm not sure how many of you are actually able to speak Japanese and understand Japanese, so I unfortunately am of no help with this either, because I myself do not know how to speak Japanese. Looks like the camera there is remotely operated. They're kind of moving it around. I was thinking it was just a static camera filming the launch pad, but they're pivoting that. Zooming in on the booster. I'm sure that whatever they're talking about in the speech is in reference to the movement that the cameras are making, but I am not 100% sure. Doing a nice tilt up the booster here, showing off all the logos. I'm assuming they're talking about the many companies that are supporting this mission and sponsoring the mission. And I could be completely wrong too. I think I'm going to start doing Google searches here, or else I could potentially just be throwing straight up misinformation out on the internet. There's the Space One logo there at the top of the booster, which is the company that actually owns the rocket, that produces the rocket for the customer to launch from. And there is the Canon logo at the top of the rocket, on the fairing of the rocket. It is a very nice looking rocket. I mean, there was a lot of rockets that use the solid rocket fuel method. China launches a lot of solid rockets, especially their commercial companies in China. They just go for solid fuel because it's cheap and easy to produce and get your rocket off the ground, rather than trying to go through and develop a liquid fueled engine, go through all the testing and stuff to make sure your engine's going to work and stuff. Like, you have the American companies that are producing their own. Methane's kind of the big thing right now with the American launch industry. And so you have all these companies that are producing these methane liquid fuel rocket engines for their rockets, and they have to go through thousands of hours of testing to validate them and make sure they work the way they're supposed to. Solid fuel, just because of what solid fuel is, it takes a lot less time to validate that rocket motor is going to work the way it's supposed to. You probably want to do a couple test fires just to make sure that, because you obviously don't want to just test fire it once and then send it off the pad. That could cause some issues, because you could have something where there is a point of failure, but that one test was not able to identify that. And so you kind of want to do it a couple times just to make sure that it is consistent with the way it operates and stuff. But solid fuel, much faster, much cheaper to produce and get off the ground from a commercial standpoint. And we obviously do still see people like NASA using solid rocket motors, just because solid rocket fuel is also extremely high thrust. you have the massive SRBs that were on the side of the space shuttle and are on the side of the Space Launch System, or SLS. That is like, I can't remember the exact percentage. I'm pretty sure it's like 90% of the rocket's thrust at liftoff is those two solid rocket motors. They pack such a large punch. Um, it's just solid. There's so many benefits, but then there's also your downsides of solid fuel. Like I was saying, you cannot shut it down after it lifts off, and so that's kind of one of the risky parts, especially when you're launching people. I know there's kind of some controversy around like Space Shuttle and the Space Launch System using SRBs because of the fact that you cannot shut them down. But when you're just launching a satellite, it's not that big of a deal, because even if you, regardless, if you have a failure, those satellites are going to get lost, whether you're using solid fuel or liquid fuel. The payloads are done for if the rocket has a failure. Let's go ahead and do some Google research real quick. Make sure I'm not spreading misinformation on the internet. So there are two logos. Oh, wow. Okay, so it seems here, from what I'm reading, the majority of the logos on the rocket are from the actual, like, main investors, the companies that came together and formed the company Space One to launch this rocket. And so Canon Electronics was one of the primary investors that actually pitched in to form this company in Japan. Canon Electronics is a Japanese company, obviously. All of their products are manufactured there in Japan. So it makes sense. I never thought I would see Canon get into the commercial launch industry, but that's pretty cool to see them actually pitching in to fund a commercial launcher like this. And then there's obviously the IHI Aerospace. I forget. I forget what they launch. It's saying here JAXA's Epsilon rockets. It says the solid rocket motor technology used on Space One's rocket, Kairos, is similar tech to, or not similar, but the same tech used in JAXA's Epsilon rockets. And so as far as Epsilon goes, I just want to verify that I know what I'm thinking of is the right thing. I haven't covered a whole, well, this is actually, with Launch Heaven, this is my first Japanese launch that I'm covering for Launch Heaven. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to the Japanese industry just because it seems like they don't launch nearly as frequently as obviously the United States does. And so it's kind of a event, if you will, when Japan launches a rocket. Let's see here. Epsilon. I see. It's just another kind of solid fuel-driven rocket. Same solid rocket motor tech, though, that is being used on this. So I assume the mixture of fuel and whatnot is all the same for the solid rocket propellant. But I was partially right, partially incorrect about the logos on the side of the rocket. You can kind of consider them sponsors, I guess, but they're mainly the investors of Space One that are all funding this project to launch a rocket for the commercial industry. Development Bank of Japan is also on there. I'm not sure which logo is theirs. I can't quite see. But the Development Bank of Japan is also an investor that has pitched in for the funding of this rocket.
はい、ありがとうございます。やっぱりね、ロケットが成功すると街がどんどん賑わってきますしね。で、宇宙産業、いや、ぜひ串本、那智勝浦でやりたいわっていう人がどんどん参入してくるんじゃないかなと思って、そういう意味でも観光だったり、それから産業だったり、いろんなものが潤ってくるだろうというふうに思ってまして、ね、僕みたいに移住してくる人も増えてくれたら嬉しいな。で、その中に中学生がいて、ぜひ宇宙コースに。
All right, some of the information for the satellites on board this rocket. As I was saying before, there are 5 customer payloads on board this rocket today, which is another reason. Fingers crossed, hoping for the success of this rocket. I hope it can reach its intended orbit after its previous 2 failures. But we have several payloads, all from commercial customers. Well, one is actually from an actual government-funded space agency. The first primary payload is from the Taiwan Space Agency. It is the NewtSat 3. It's a it's a single CubeSat developed with the National Taiwan University. It's going to be used to test aircraft tracking and other communication technologies from orbit. So that'll be pretty cool. Using the ADS-B transponders that all aircraft use when they're airborne to kind of track the flights. When you open up Flight Radar 24 on either the web or on the app on your phone, ADS-B transponder is what is sending that information out to you, giving you the altitude, speed, all of that, the exact GPS location of the aircraft, all that information. So they're going to be testing some technology to actually track those flights from space, which will be pretty cool. You have commercial customer Terra Space launching the Tatera 1R. It's a Earth observation satellite, which is specifically designed for high resolution imagery. I'm not sure what the actual resolution is of that, like in terms of like how far in it can zoom or what resolution is actually photographing the surface from. Because you have some satellites that they have such extreme resolution that you can zoom right in on like a I mean, you have like spy satellites that countries launch and stuff, and the optics on those satellites are so insane that you can zoom right in and see like an individual, like, I'm trying to think of a word. How can I over exaggerate this per se? I mean, it's not really over exaggeration. I mean, there are certain countries that are very secretive about the things that they launch, and so they don't really announce when a rocket's going out to the launch pad. And so you have satellites that just happen to cross over the launch site, and they post the picture online, and it's like, oh, I guess they're launching a rocket today. They didn't announce it, but it's on the pad, so they're going to be launching a rocket. And so you can zoom right in, and you can see that there's clearly like something there on the ground. It's not fuzzy. You can tell exactly what it is. So I don't know what the resolution is of Terra Space's Earth observation satellite will be, but very cool to see that. Commercial customer Space Cubics. They're launching a satellite which are testing the radiation. A demonstration satellite testing radiation tolerant commercial off the shelf. Oh, okay. So they are testing off the shelf components, computer components for the use in space. So if I'm understanding this correctly, it's essentially like if you went into a micro center and bought a bunch of motherboards and other computer components from Micro Center and strapped them to a satellite and sent them into orbit. That is what this satellite is. Basically testing the radiation tolerance of those computer components to see how they hold up to the extreme conditions of space. Now, I could be wrong. It's probably not like off the shelf in terms of going into a Best Buy or a Micro Center to get those components, but with it being labeled as off the shelf, it's something that is not a specially designed piece that is specifically designed to survive in space. They just, because they want to test how those off the shelf components work, so they're not going to specifically design it to survive in space due to the nature of the test. Commercial customer Arc Edge Space is a technology demonstrator satellite focused on advancing their small satellite bus architecture. So they're basically just launching a technology demonstrator to prove that whatever platform they're building their satellites off of actually works. And then you have the, oh man, I'm afraid to actually pronounce that. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of that. It is the Hyo Gakuin. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's the high school in, I believe they're based out of Japan. But they're launching an educational CubeSat designed by the students at the high school to test optical communications using LEDs from orbit. So that is definitely a really cool STEM project there. Actual high school students that went through the whole process of developing a satellite, and now it's on board this rocket, being launched into orbit. So it would be kind of exciting to learn the results of that one specifically, because it was a satellite developed by high school students. So we're talking like 17, 18 years old teenagers that produced a satellite, and it's going to go up in orbit. It'll be really cool to know if their test succeeds and they can establish communication with that satellite once it gets up there. I would also like to know, I'm not sure if they've talked about it in the actual stream of the rocket or not, but it would be neat to know about kind of the backstory of that and how they went through all their testing and stuff to kind of verify that it would actually work, rather than just like building something and kind of like, oh, it might work, it might not work, and then they just throw it on the rocket. Because in most circumstances, when you develop a satellite, you have to put it through all kinds of different tests, run it through vibrations, stuff like that, to make sure that the satellite's not going to get like shaken apart just from the extreme vibrations of the rocket itself upon launch. And it does say here as well that with the student ambitions at this high school, one of their primary things is to just prove that space is becoming accessible even for people who are at the K through 12 levels of education. So this is basically saying like, these high schoolers did it. Space is becoming accessible to all age ranges. If you have the means of funding the project, anybody can produce a satellite and put it into space. It's not just going to be restricted to the top of the top best aerospace companies to produce a satellite for you, which from the get-go, I mean, it is becoming extremely easy to produce your own satellite and put it into orbit. Companies like Rocket Lab are they are producing quote unquote like off the shelf satellite components. They're mass producing satellite components, and then you can just go to Rocket Lab and say like, hey, this is what I want to do, and Rocket Lab can sell you the pieces that you need to build your satellite. So whereas before the off the shelf option became available, you would have to start from square one, and you'd have to make everything from scratch essentially for your satellite to get it to produce it and get it into orbit. So definitely really cool to see that there are companies that are offering these off-the-shelf components now to make it easier for people like a high school here, because I don't know. Let's do a little bit more research. We are at T-minus 3 minutes for this, or T-minus 3 minutes 30 seconds, so we are coming up pretty quick on launch. But I want to just do one more search on this student project, because I think it's kind of a cool thing to talk about. So it does look like here the students did partner with a there's an engineering company, a Japanese space consultant company out of Japan, that they partner with the engineers with this company to kind of get guidance on what steps to take to produce their satellite. But I am failing to find information. It looks like these students did actually get access to like a clean rooms, like they're getting access to professional aerospace grade like like equipment and tools and stuff to produce their satellite as if they were actually people working in the as if they were an actual aerospace company producing the satellite. And so they sent it through all of the testing with their partner that with the Japanese partner that they had. But I cannot find anything on like how they produced the components and stuff, on if it was like off-the-shelf components or if they made it from scratch in partnership with their space consultant. But regardless, as I was saying, with that technology becoming more and more accessible, it's definitely going to be much easier for a classroom in high school to produce a satellite than, say, it was maybe 20 years ago. And here we go, T-minus 1 minute to launch. We're actually more T-minus 50 seconds now. But we're about to see this thing lift off, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes to plan this time on their third flight attempt. Third time is the charm for Kairos. And I'm going to turn our volume up a little bit so you can hear the rocket. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm not seeing the rocket go anywhere. Not seeing the rocket go anywhere. Did they go into a hole? Did they abort? The rocket is sitting on the pad. Looks like they had an abort, possibly. They took the countdown clock off the screen. It would be really awkward to just see the rocket kind of light up out of nowhere and disappear. They do have, I believe it's a 20-minute launch window today. Their window opened here at 9 p.m. and their window goes until, yes, 9:20. So they have 20 minutes to get this rocket off the ground. Obviously, not a huge problem, given that it's a solid rocket motor. I assume they can just like light it up whenever they're ready, because there's not any like really propellant conditioning that they have to do, like with like Starship or Falcon 9. A lot of times when you miss your initial launch and you have an abort, you have to kind of set your countdown clock back a little bit, let that propellant top back off and condition itself for flight again. But with being solid propellant, I don't think it would be a huge deal to kind of just set back the clock a little bit and go again. I'm not hearing any commentators over the stream either, but even if there were commentators, we probably wouldn't be able to know what they were saying because they don't even have like English subtitles on here. So I guess we would just stand by and see what happens here for the next 20 minutes, see if they scrub or not. I believe they've attempted to launch a couple times already for this specific rocket. Because I think I've seen other streams on YouTube that streamed a couple days ago. So they've had at least one launch attempt before this, and they also had to scrub that launch attempt. And so I don't know if it was from a technical issue on the rocket side, or if it was a due to weather or something along those lines. Metal Rules says there is a coyote checking the fuse. I wonder if there'll be a very Looney Tune-esque explosion here when the fuse gets reconnected. I hope not. I was counting for nothing. I also counted for nothing. I did the whole countdown there. And then it just kind of sat there. The rocket just kind of sat there. It hasn't done anything. Hopefully it will do something here within the next Looking at 27 minutes now. Or no, not 27 minutes, 17 minutes. That's what I'm trying to say. I can do math, I promise. There is literally nobody talking right now. Like, there's no like sound coming in from mission control or anything for this rocket. So, oh, we do have people that are saying they're talking now,
午
but
前11時からの打ち上
I
げ
don't-
を予定しており
I
ま
don't
し
know
た
what they're
カイ
saying.
ロス
There's
ロケ
no
ットの
subtitles.
打ち上げは中止となりました。延期日程は決まり次第お知らせいたします。さあ中止ということですけれども、藤島先生、
はい、
少しこのねいろんな複雑な
残
思いがあ
念ですね。
りますが、
はい。
やはりこういった気象条件でしょうかね。
まあでも30分前、10分前はね、GO ってなってたんで、いやなかなか難しいですね。まあ原因はこれから分かるんだろうと思いますけれども、まあロケット自体にね影響がない、支障がないことを祈るばかりです。
そうですよね。ただまだ打ち上がってはいませんので、ここから打ち上がる姿というのがまた
Not a clue
見
what's
ら
going
れ
on
る
right
と
now.
いうことではございますよね。
はい、それを期待したいと思います。
そうですよね。さあカイロスロケット3号機
Hopefully
の
the rocket
大き
launches
な
quickly.
大
It's
きな
after
挑戦と
3
いう
a.m.
のを
here. Oh my god, I
私
gotta
たち
turn on the
も
volume on this
これ
thing on.
応援しておりますので、今回は中止ということですが。
Hopefully the rocket launches quickly. It's after 3 a.m. here, and I really should be going to bed. Yeah, I mean, it's not that late here. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as I was saying. But they have a 20-minute launch window here, and we're already 6 minutes into that 20-minute launch window. So I'm not sure what they're saying right now. It looks like they were just saying goodbye right there. This may be scrubbed. This launch might be scrubbed. Let's go in and confirm here. Launch is holding. I don't see anything official saying scrub. No, yeah, it was scrubbed. They said goodbye. There was indeed a scrub today. That is unfortunate to see. I'm not sure when their next launch opportunity will be. Once again, I unfortunately do not speak Japanese, so I'm not sure what they were saying there on the webcast. But I guess we're gonna close it off there unless anybody in the chat has any questions. I'm happy to hang around and answer some questions here a little bit longer, but there is unfortunately no rocket launching today. They have scrubbed the rocket launch today, which it's better that it was scrubbed rather than it launching and having a failure after liftoff. So definitely good to see that the rocket is safe on the pad, and hopefully they'll get through and fix whatever issue they were facing, and we'll see a launch here very soon. But once again, I'm not sure when their next launch opportunity is going to be. I don't know if that's been announced, if they just said it right there or not. But keep an eye on the Launch Heaven social pages. Keep an eye here on YouTube, because as soon as we get an official launch date, we'll have another stream scheduled for you guys to set your notifications and stuff. So next time we get a confirmation for the Kairos rocket launch, definitely keep your eyes out on the Launch Heaven YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe and set those notifications so you do not miss the stream when this thing actually launches. It'll be really exciting to see it fly and hopefully succeed on its third time. Because like I said, third time's always a charm. Theoretically speaking, hypothetically speaking, hopefully. I really hope so. But also, check out all of our other social pages. Launch Heaven is on Instagram, X, and also on TikTok. We do try to stream to TikTok as frequently as possible as well. If you prefer to watch your content through TikTok, I personally prefer the YouTube option because it's widescreen, not vertical. It's a little bit higher resolution than what the TikTok stream is, so you're definitely getting the best quality on YouTube. But if for whatever reason you prefer your vertical content, definitely go check us out on TikTok and give us a follow. But we'll be providing we provide updates for stuff on our X platform and also on Instagram as well. So if you have all three of those, definitely go check us out and follow us on all three of them. And obviously, like I was saying, keep an eye on the YouTube channel because we will be back again when this rocket officially launches. Hopefully they can get it turned back around and fix the issue quickly, and we can see it maybe launch another day this week. And we don't have to wait too long for Kairos to soar into the sky and hopefully achieve orbit for the first time successfully. I see a mark in the chat here. Do you think with all the rocket companies we reach a saturation point? We reach saturation at some point. That is definitely a concern. I mean, we have so many American companies that are trying to produce their rockets. They're all trying to beat each other into orbit. It's kind of like an American commercial space race going on right now. You've got companies like Stoke Space. You've got Relativity trying to launch their Terran R rocket. Obviously, a lot of these rockets that are being developed are for different markets. Terran R is more of a competitor towards the Falcon 9. Rocket Lab's Neutron is going to be a competitor to Falcon 9. Stoke Space is more targeted towards that small sat industry, alongside the Firefly Aerospace Alpha rocket and also Rocket Lab's Electron. I don't know if we are to the point yet where there are too many companies, but it does get kind of to a point where you have a launch. You have reusable rockets, obviously, and so Stoke Space is going to be launching a 100% fully reusable rocket. I'm super excited to see the Stoke Space Nova rocket launch. Terran R is going to be recovering the booster, reflying, along with Rocket Lab's Neutron with a recoverable booster. So you're going to see launch cadence very quickly begin to pick up with these companies over the next couple of years once they officially get to orbit with their rockets. Blue Origin's already launching New Glenn, and so you are getting to a point where the launch cadence gets up so high and they're able to launch payloads so frequently, and then obviously they're able to do the commercial rideshare missions like Falcon 9 does, where you can throw 100 satellites onto a single rocket and throw it into orbit. So there's going to be, the cost is obviously going to come down, become very competitive between commercial companies as more providers get out there onto the market, which is great for people like us, the little guys that couldn't really afford to get to space before. It's going to be really nice to see that launch cost come down as all of the options become available. But it will reach a point where there's going to be saturation, and it's going to be hard for other people to break into this market at a certain point. I don't think we're there yet. I'm not sure how large the market is. I'm not like super well versed into like the market that is commercial space, but if we keep having these startups kind of come out of the woodworks, I mean, we have a lot of people over in Europe that are trying to produce rockets right now and support that small sat market. And I think the small sat market is definitely the direction that things are heading right now. There's not very many people producing like large satellites that require a big rocket anymore, which is why Rocket Lab has been so successful with Electron, and they're launching so frequently, and they're able to support those small sat customers for a very cheap price with their Electron rocket. And you even see Falcon 9, they launch a lot of those rideshare missions with hundreds of small satellites on board a single rocket to get them all into a specific orbit. And so that small sat is definitely the market that it is being targeted right now. It's definitely, I think, the largest market for commercial space at the given moment. Well, obviously, with the commercial space stations that are being produced, that's another thing that can get saturated very quickly, I feel. I'm not sure how saturated the commercial space station market will get, because I mean, it's going to be kind of like, it'll eventually get to the point where it might be kind of like a hotel chains trying to compete with each other. You have multiple hotel options in space, and that will be where the space tourism market will come in. We're not quite there yet where we have a huge market for space tourism. That's kind of one of those things that are reserved for the really super wealthy people. But there's a lot of different markets. I think small sat is the primary thing right now, but eventually space tourism is going to begin to expand as we get more space stations into orbit and they start opening those space stations up for commercial crews to come on board and do whatever they need to do for days at a time, months at a time, however long they need to be on the space station. But I hope that answered your question. I kind of went on like a rant there, but just like any industry, I mean, you think about like the media industry with photographers and videography, the YouTube industry and stuff like content creators. That is an extremely saturated market, and it's really hard to break into that thing if you don't kind of have a niche that you are that gets you noticed and makes you stand out from all of the other competitors in the media industry, like YouTubers. In order to be a successful YouTuber, you have to have something very specific that people like kind of know you by and understand you for, in order for your page to grow and succeed with all of the other people trying to be content creators at the same time. And so that same thing kind of qualifies for the launch industry, where you need to have a specific thing, a specific selling point to your customers. Obviously price is a big thing, but like being able, kind of like Space One, advertising themselves here as like the fastest to orbit, like getting the customer into orbit the faster than any of their competitors. That's kind of their big marketing tactic there. So you got to have something like that to kind of get the attention of your customers and keep your customers as well for future launches. But once again, that was kind of a ramble. Hope that answered your question. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else that asked any other questions. I don't think there was any other questions asked here. But yes, that launch was aborted. The stream is ended here. They're cutting the stream off now, and I'm gonna go to a black screen, I think, on the actual live feed. But with that being said, I'm going to close off the stream. Like I was saying before, once again, keep an eye out on the Launch Heaven YouTube channel. Be sure to set your notifications as soon as we have another live stream scheduled for the Kairos rocket launch, because as soon as we get an official date set for when they're going to do their next launch attempt, we will schedule a new stream and have it ready to go for whenever they're ready to launch. So keep your eyes out on YouTube, keep your eyes out on other social channels, and yeah, we will... Whoa, that was a voice crack right there. I apologize. But yeah, I'm going to close out here. We will see you all next time for hopefully the successful launch attempt of the Kairos rocket. See you all next time.